into creating some text that looks like stone. So we're going to start with just kind of our standard 8.5 by 11, horizontal 300. We'll go CMYK in theory like we are printing and hit create. Okay, we've obviously already downloaded the concrete file. At this point, at some point pretty close to the beginning, go in, do something with your name that's also self-explanatory so that if the file got lost or you had to do a search for what was within that file, you could do those things. So hit save. I like to do that at that point, not when I'm first creating it. Just always think that's a little bit better. Okay, first we're going to create a piece of text. We're going to call this demo. And we are going to make it much bigger. Funky text. We're going to go kind of follow what I had already found, which is some kind of thick, heavy font. This one worked really well for me. If you've got access to that font, great. If not, maybe Impact or something else that's thick, because we want to make some text that looks thick for this guy. And 180, no tracking. And then, kind of line them up, not center, center left to right, but not center top to bottom. We're going to add some stuff down here. So, okay, let's hit save throughout this process. Hit OK. All right, we're going to do kind of our little masked text trick. Slightly different order this way, but let's make a new layer. Let's dump black inside of it. Oh, everything's black. Let's command click on our thumbnail. Let's select this black layer, and then let's throw a mask on it in the shape of that. And then you can hide the word demo. Now the word demo is from this text layer. And let's call this face. You definitely need to name no matter when you're doing stuff, especially this guy, because you can get stuff stacked up on top of each other that all looks the same. So be careful with that. All right. At that point, we are going to go start adding on some different masks. So we're going to use masks with filters added instead of just text with filters added or shapes with filters added, as just a new little idea of how you can do things. So we are going to select this mask. We're not doing it to this black, we're doing it to the mask shape. We are going to go filter. We are going to go filter gallery. We're going to add a couple of things in here. Let me shrink this down so we can see all of it. A couple of things. First, we're going to do a brush stroke splatter. So look under brush strokes, find splatter. And we're going to do this guy, we'll say 1515. We're adding some chunks. In the real world, you wouldn't necessarily know exactly what you wanted. So you would click through these. You would, like I always say, go ham on some stuff so you can see how it affects it. But we're going to go splatter. We already kind of know with this guy what I want. I've already done some of the testing for you. You're just working through the process. Okay. At this point, we're going to add an additional filter here. So we will come in here and add this guy. Click. We've got the one. Okay. For this next one, and you add the little plus sign down at the bottom, new effect layer. So for this next one, we're going to go sketch stamp 1515, probably 2. And we're kind of just getting a little bit of texture. We're going to add to this down the pipeline. So hit OK when you're done. Now, slightly counterintuitive, but we need to add in quite a few different masks. So this time at this beginning phase, we're going to apply this mask. It's going to become a shape. Left click. Whoops, I don't want my dancing hands on. Left click or on a Mac, control click and say apply layer mask. Now it just looks like that. Fine. Now we're going to go add to this sort of rough edge and start making things look really cool. So hit save. Let's be smart about things. Let's command click, and now this time we're going to do a few other things to it. So command click to get the selection. We can do that anytime we have something selected like this, or anytime we have a shape or a cutout or text or whatever. You can always click on that thumbnail. So we're going to command click. We're going to make a new mask on this layer that will now include these rough edges. And we're going to add a filter called Pixelate Crystallize. So filter, Pixelate, Crystallize. Again, you would test some of these things. And at this point, let's do this first layer. You know, you go ham. Like, look, you can get all kinds of things. So I think I kind of like tested it out, and 15 was pretty good. So we'll get it close to there. There we go. Hit OK. Awesome. Next, we are going to drop in our concrete layer. So let's go in, let's place embed, find your concrete, hit place, hit return, and then let's layer mask, let's clipping mask this down to the layer below it with our option click. So now we've got kind of this interesting start, but we need a lot more dimension. And we want it to not just look like rough edges, but like chunks cut out of this. We are going to duplicate this main face layer. You can do that many ways. Duplicate, you can click the plus sign, you can drag it down to the plus sign. We'll leave it at face copy for now. Bring it up to the top. Re-clipping mask this guy on with our option. We have to do that a few times in this process. Next, we are going to add this filter kind of again. Click on this. Let's add this pixelate again, and this will start to add chunks, and you'll see in a little bit when we tone down the black but leave these crystallized chunks, what's going to happen. So crystallize again. At this point, let's do some big chunks out of this. So you can really beef it up to whatever, and you would test, guess or check. We'll do 70 for hours for now. And hit OK. And you can kind of start to see now what I mean of, oh, this is going to be chunks. And again, in the real world, you would not have this to follow. You would test things like, I want some of this to look chunky. What can I do? These are a few of the things you can do. Okay, so they're there, but they're like really like sharp. Like this guy's like a perfect 90 degrees. So now let's add a little bit of chunk back onto that. So let's go back up to filter, back down to pixelate, and let's do crystallize again, but this time much, much smaller. So then it just starts to add like little chunks off of, I'll leave this at 7. I think my lesson says something slightly different, but now you start to add little chunks off of this, and now see how that really starts to like add on to it. Okay, let's hit save. Now we are going to select the regular thumbnail for this new layer. So the thumbnail, not the mask. And we're going to embevel and emboss. This is going to put a little bit, kind of like a drop shadow effect. So bevel and emboss is going to put some like dimension, some like roundness, some depth to this. I'm sure a drop shadow effect may be able to work for this, but I found that this bevel and emboss started to work. So while we're on this thumbnail, we're going to go to Effect, Bevel and Emboss, which, sorry, it's down here, just past where my video is. And now let's start to kind of look at what we're doing. So we've got this bevel and emboss. We want to do like an outer bevel. Again, you would want to test some of this stuff. You know, look, what is it doing? Does it look good? Is it how you want it to be? There's always going to be a different look for these. So for this guy, I found that outer bevel started to look cool. Smooth, 300-ish for depth looked good. 70 for size, looked pretty good. I didn't want it softened because I wanted it to look kind of chunky and not so, you know, faded. You can adjust your lighting a little bit at this point. So we're kind of always getting our lighting from this side. I did notice that the gloss contour, like utilizing kind of this S-shaped one was pretty nice. Color dodge for our highlights. Color burn is an interesting one for our shadows for some of these effects within Photoshop. And kind of doing them 15, 35, somewhere in that realm, and hit OK. You know, you can look at these, but see how it starts to add like a little bit, like you got to pick one and just go with it. Like I'm kind of looking at this guy and he starts to get like some nice rounded, which I think is really nice, and some darks on where it would be more dark. So cool. And when you back up, like look how that's really starting to take shape. Okay, now back in that same dialog box, up at the very top, this is where the magic comes in. You'll see this blend option. So you're going to click on that. And under advanced blending, see where it says fill opacity? Oh, this is where we can make a big difference. So we can turn this all the way down. And notice though, our effect of this bevel and emboss still shows, but the black of the fill does not. So we're kind of layering up this stuff. You know, this could be cool and maybe grasses, maybe brick. There's a lot of different applications that you could play with some of this stuff to build up some of these textures, which is really fun. Okay. Now let's work on the extruding. Let's hit save. Let's copy the main face layer. Again, it's probably gonna mess this guy up, and that's okay. Copy, paste, whatever. You can either grab this top one, mask him on. Oops, something got moved. Let's undo that for a second. Bring him down. Again, mask him back on. Oop. There we go. Okay, so we've got this like face or face copy. We're going to call this edge before we do anything, because this is what I was talking about. It gets really confusing of like what I'm working with. Let's rename this one to face main. Okay. And face copy. Let's call these chips effect. Just so that we're kind of keeping ourselves slightly organized of what am I even looking at. Cool. And it already is starting to look really neat, right? Okay, so now we have this edge effect. And we are going to apply this mask. And then we're going to scale this guy down just a little bit so that we can start to see what's happening. Kind of, this is sort of like a trick way of making this edge. It's not perfect. There's tons of different ways you could, but I think it looks pretty cool. Okay, and then at that point you can see some weird spots, like especially with the T, like this should connect to there. So let's go in and fill those pieces in with black paint, sharp edge, 100%. You don't need it to be ginormous. And this is just kind of a quick, like, let's get those edges in there properly the way they should be. You know, if you want that guy in there a little bit better, does he need to be in there a little bit better? Maybe even there, probably even here. Okay. Not bad. And depending on how big your word is, you know, you may have a lot more that you'd want to clean up. So Command S. Okay. At this point, while we've got this guy, I know in advance I'm going to show us this kind of interesting new shadow way. So I'm going to make a copy of this. I'm just going to hide it. I'm going to call this one shadow. Oops. Edge still. We'll leave him as that. We'll call this one shadow. Sorry. And we'll use him in a little bit. He just looks the same, but we're going to go back to this edge main. Okay, if at any point you need to like reconnect masks, just do that, because it'll happen a couple of times as you like add things. It like tosses off your clipping mask, which gets kind of annoying. All right, so we're going to duplicate this concrete layer, or you can bring in the concrete layer again. Either way, gets you really similar. Okay, and look, he's already started to mess some stuff up. But all right, edge main, let's clipping mask him down. We can use our main select, this like move tool if you needed to, and just kind of like barely, like if you look right here, you can see how it just sort of like barely moves it a little bit so that you're not like the exact same lines and cuts right here that are right there. It gives it like a little bit more reality. Let's get closer so we can see what's actually happened. Okay, we've got these two clipping masks. Good, good. Okay, at this point, we're going to add a bevel and emboss filter to this edge layer. So click on your main edge. Let's add a bevel and emboss. Again, it's down here underneath our effects. Effects and filter are just like ever so slightly different. Okay, and for this one, we're thinking inner. Notice things are already starting to look kind of cool. We're thinking smooth. We're thinking 400. We're thinking 70, pretty close. We could bring that up a little bit if we wanted. We still like some of that S curve, and even we can change some of the lighting. You know, you'd want to kind of really think about where lighting was coming. I'm actually going to leave it more over here to stay more consistent with where I'm going to do a drop shadow. You can color dodge for your highlight, and you can color burn. And again, you could like beef any of these up, like if you want to see a little bit more. And I do think it looks kind of nice when you beef a little bit of it up. It starts to like make that edge look a little bit nicer, right? And you can see how these things affect, like when I turn this down, that doesn't look bad, but I want a little bit of light. So bring that up just a little bit. Okay, and this looks pretty good, and this is kind of looking nice. Okay. Next, we're going to click back onto this face layer, and we're going to add another filter to this layer to give the edges a little bit more value by adding kind of a drop shadow, which is a little weird, but because it's masked, it will work. So while we're on this thumbnail, we'll go in, we're going to add just kind of a general down here below drop shadow. And notice right away, you can already see how it's starting to toss down some nice value to that. Color burns, looking good. Beef up your distance, pull down your spread, kind of have a decent size, but you can mess with all these. Go ham, see how it looks. You know, which ones do you like? I kind of like it pretty beefed up with the opacity, in my opinion. You can test out your different types. Obviously not that one, but color burn helps because of similar to multiply, except it does not acknowledge all the stuff below it. Okay, we can leave our contour pretty normal and noise, and this is starting to look pretty nice. Like we're getting some dimension by just adding these guys up. Okay. Last few steps. Let's just glance at this guy. I kind of want to see if I turn down just a little bit. They got really white over here. But you can see how you can always like click back into these different filters and make adjustments. Like I'm just going to tone that down like the tiniest bit. You would glance and see if any of that looked even cooler to you, and like maybe it does. So you hit okay. But like look at that. That's starting to look really nice. Obviously we're going to add a shadow into this guy. Okay, so I'm going to click onto the cast shadow layer, the shadow layer, and we're going to do kind of a weird thing. You could select this, invert, dump white into it. Another way you can do it is go up to edit, go into fill. I can choose white and then say that I want it to be behind. Kind of weird little trick to toss white onto it. It's not the most intuitive to me, but it's there. It's an option. Okay, now while we're on this layer, check out this shadow option that I found. We're going to go to filter, blur gallery, and we're going to look for path blur. And this starts to get fun. It opens up a new box, kind of looks like you're in the same, and you're like, oh my God, where are my layers at? We just can't yet. You do this stuff, and then you hit OK when you're done. So what we're going to do, you want to change it from basic to this rear sync flash. You can just kind of start to see it already happening. And then almost like pins, that's why it looks like a pin here. After Effects has pins. This is kind of same. Check that out. What you can do with this guy. Getting some really cool looking drop shadows in there. So at this point, you could, speed, let's try 150. You would just be looking at your screen and testing these guys out. So let's try like 150, taper, and, see which one works. You're like, oh no, that's weird. That's not what I want. Okay, I think this looks pretty good. You can always adjust to get like more or less. My computer's going pretty slow. I'm kind of freaking out right now. So I'm going to kind of leave it down to 150. I don't want it so crazy. And give it a minute to think. And that seems pretty decent. You can test your endpoint speed. That's kind of like your trail off. Like, how much is it trailing? Your taper. You can retest all of these guys. But that seems all right. Pretty cool. I like the way this is looking. And then when you're done, you'll hit OK. Give it a minute to think. My computer is really struggling right this moment. And at that point, let's go back to our favorite with multiply. You can even turn it down just a little bit if you want. Just depends on the look you're going for, the lighting source, your subject, what's going on. Let's hit save. This is a lot of work, and we're nearly done at this point. Okay. It looks cool, but here's a part that's weird. See how this doesn't do anything for that? And that gets a little odd, right? It kind of looks like it's floating. That's kind of strange. So let's go resolve that this roundabout way. We're going to select the edge layer, edge main. We're going to command click on our thumbnail. We're going to add a mask. And then we're going to add a little bit of a blur to the mask to allow a little bit of this shadow below to show through. Very roundabout way. So filter, blur, Gaussian. Oh, and just right away. Look how that starts to work. So, you would test what looks good, what doesn't look good. And I feel as though this looks pretty decent, kind of around 10. Like a little bit of it, but not too crazy. Okay. I like that. Again, you can always double check what you're working with. Like if this bevel is looking a little odd, you can always pull back some of this stuff. Obviously, let your computer think it's kind of freaking out right now. Mine is, at least. To get some of the effects to look, a little bit better. This is not perfect. This is a decent. Okay, let's go It looks pretty good from a distance, by all means. Let's go toss another version of this cement in the very, very background so it looks like this stuff has like been chiseled out of cement. Yes, ma'am. Here we go. Let's just scale it up, make it bigger. Hit return, go to layer and make sure it gets dumped to the bottom. That's starting to look really cool, like it's truly chiseled out. Let's finish off this concept with demo guys, like it's a demo company. So I'll type out the word guys. We'll do a really simple effect for this piece. Command T and make it, much bigger. Depending on the typography you choose. Turn. I went in and the type I liked was pretty thin. Agency's pretty cool. That one's really thin. You could try that. Let's make it significantly bigger so we can kind of see it. Let's line it up center. And let's make it look like demo was chipped out and then guys was chipped in. Very, very simple. We're going to add a bevel emboss down here. Sorry, my screen cuts it off. Instead of outer, let's go inner. Don't make it so big that you can't see anything. My computer's going really, really freakishly slow. So give it a few minutes to think. Oh, well, actually, let's try emboss. Oh, yeah, that starts to get it. Look how it even added a tiny bit of highlight around the edge, and then stuff's starting to really look like it's sinking in. You can try deepening this a little bit. We can't see too much right now because I need to turn it down. I can always hit OK. I can turn this guy down a little bit so I can see a little bit more of what's happening. And then I could always click back in and start making a few more edits. Click on your bevel emboss. I found that depth around 400 ended up looking cool. Size pretty small. Soften a lot. Yup. Most of these settings look pretty good. You could always play around with it and see if any of this stuff looked cooler to you. And then just trying to kind of get it to look like it's sitting back. Let's change this layer to a multiply. Then I really start to get it. It's like a little bit more carved in there. You can see the difference in just a little bit of curve out, a little bit of light around the edge, which is kind of nice. And then we've got a really cool effect. You could do a little bit more if you wanted. Let's turn it down just even more. Yeah, I kind of like that. Look, it looks like it sits in there a tiny bit more. Hit save. Now you've got a cool little piece. You could go in, you could add a chisel with another drop shadow onto it where it looks like stuff was really chipped out of it. This would be a great piece for any kind of service, ad, and adding to a vehicle wrap. Let me know if you have any questions.